In the 1960s, 16 American states made it a crime for people of different races to marry. But Richard and Mildred Loving refused to accept a world where their love was illegal. From a midnight police raid to a unanimous Supreme Court victory, their journey is the ultimate testament to human resilience. Stick with us as we uncover the full, heart-wrenching, and triumphant story of Mildred and Richard Loving, the couple who legally brought love home. It was 2 a.m. on July 11, 1958. In the quiet town of Central Point, Virginia, the world was asleep. But for Richard and Mildred Loving, the nightmare was just beginning. The silence was shattered by the heavy boots of Sheriff Garnett Brooks and 2 deputies. They didn't knock. They burst into the bedroom, the harsh beam of a flashlight blinding the couple. "What are you doing in bed with this woman?" the sheriff demanded. Mildred, frightened but defiant, pointed to a framed document on the wall and said, "I'm his wife." But in the state of Virginia, in 1958, that marriage certificate wasn't a symbol of love, it was a confession of a felony. Richard was white. Mildred was of African American and Native American descent. Under the Racial Integrity Act, their union was an abomination in the eyes of the law. That night, they weren't just a husband and wife. They were criminals. To understand why the state was so afraid of them, we have to go back to where it all began. Richard and Mildred didn't grow up in a world of protest. They grew up in a small, tight-knit community where the lines of race were often blurred by friendship and shared struggle. Richard was 17, a quiet boy who loved cause. Mildred was just 11, a shy girl everyone called Bean. Richard was a family friend, and over the years, their bond evolved from childhood friendship into a deep, unshakable love. In 1958, when Mildred became pregnant, they decided to do what any couple in love would do. They got married. Knowing it was illegal in Virginia, they traveled to Washington, D.C., where interracial marriage was legal. They thought that once they were legally wed in the nation's capital, they would be safe. They were wrong. After the raid, Richard spent a night in jail. Mildred spent 3 locked in a tiny, cold cell, separated from her husband and her family. When they finally stood before Judge Leon M. Bazile, the sentence was chilling. He gave them a choice: spend 1 year in prison or be exiled from the state of Virginia for 25 years. 25 years away from their parents, their friends, and the only home they had ever known. They chose exile. They moved to Washington, D.C., but for Mildred, a country girl at heart, the city was a concrete cage. She missed the open fields. She missed the feeling of belonging. They would often sneak back into Virginia to visit family, living like fugitives, constantly looking over their shoulders, terrified that the law would find them again. By 1964, the winds of change were blowing across America. The civil rights movement was in full swing. Inspired by the bravery she saw on the news, Mildred sat down and wrote a letter to Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy. She didn't ask for a revolution. She just asked for the right to go home. Kennedy referred her to the ACLU, 2 young, inexperienced but passionate lawyers. Bernard Cohen and Philip Hirschkopf took the case. They knew this was the fight of a lifetime. Their first challenge was a return to Judge Bazile, who stood by his original ruling with a statement that would go down in history for its sheer prejudice. He claimed that God placed the races on separate continents for a reason and never intended for them to mix. This blatant racism provided the very grounds Cohen and Hirschkopf needed to take the case all the way to the United States Supreme Court. April 10, 1967, the highest court in the land. Richard Loving didn't attend the hearing. He wasn't a man of many words, but he gave his lawyer a simple message to deliver to the justices. Tell the court I love my wife and it is just not fair that I cannot live with her in Virginia. On June 12, 1967, the Supreme Court delivered a unanimous 9-0 decision. Chief Justice Earl Warren wrote that the freedom to marry is one of the vital personal rights essential to the orderly pursuit of happiness by free men. The Lovings had won. Interracial marriage was now legal in every corner of the United States. They were finally, legally, home. The Lovins returned to Central Point and built a house on land Richard's father gave them. For 8 years, they lived the quiet life they had fought so hard for. But tragedy struck in 1975. A drunk driver hit their car on a Saturday night. Richard was killed instantly. Mildred lost her right eye, but more importantly, she lost her soulmate. Mildred never remarried. She spent the rest of her life in the house Richard built, surrounded by her children and grandchildren. She passed away in 2008, but her legacy lives on every June 12th, known as Loving Day. Richard and Mildred Loving didn't set out to change the world. They weren't activists or politicians. They were just two people who loved each other. Their story reminds us that sometimes, the most revolutionary thing you can do is simply refuse to stop loving. If you found this story inspiring, don't forget to like and subscribe to True Love Diaries for more incredible stories of love that defied the odds. What do you think of Richard and Mildred's journey? Let us know in the comments below. If you have a story you'd like to share, we'd be honored to tell it. Send it to us via email. The address is in the description below.